Welcome back in, Bears fans. It's time for another Bears Latest. I'm Brandon, and it's Tuesday, April the 29th. And today we're going to kick off by talking about the undrafted free agents that the Bears signed immediately following the draft on Saturday. As of right now, we have 10 players. Right off the bat, the one thing that stood out were the positions that were signed. And as you hear about the player, about the position, you will notice that these are areas of that were identified as areas to improve upon, positions that need to improvement. And you're going to see that the Bears paid attention to that as they were going through the undrafted free agent signing period. Right off the bat, Jonathan Kim, kicker for Michigan State. Uh, this will be a great opportunity to provide competition for Cairo Santos. As you know, Cairo, even though he still had a good year, he had a couple of games where he had blocked kicks. And, some people are thinking that, the power is not as strong with him in his leg as it had been in previous seasons. He's still a hell of a player, but the thing about Kim is that his distance, he can kick them deep. He hit quite a few from beyond 50 and is very accurate. The only thing that stood out that was kind of a head scratcher last season, he missed 2 extra points. And there could have been a multitude of reasons for that, but that's the one knock there. And typically, you don't see a lot of kickers. There's usually two or three that might be drafted during the entire draft process. So the fact that he got through doesn't necessarily mean that he's not as good as the guys that were drafted. Actually, his numbers hold up and pretty comparable to the guys that were drafted. I'm pretty intrigued by this. The last time we had a Michigan State kicker would have been about 20 years ago, a guy by the name of Paul Edinger. And he did pretty good for the Bears. We had him around for a while. He was pretty darn successful. So who knows? Jonathan Kim might be giving Cairo a run for his money. We'll have to see. The next player that was interesting was Luke Elkin. He's a long snapper out of Iowa. The thing that's of note here is that he is the long snapper for Torrey Taylor, our punter that we drafted in the 4th round last year. So there's good chemistry that has to be there. They've worked together. Scott Daly is back with the Bears again this year. We had gotten him from Detroit last year, but this guy's obviously he's a little bit younger. He is not as experienced as Daly, but again, I think chemistry with a player, especially when you've worked together for so long in college, like the two of them did, be a very interesting story during training camp. We got 2 safeties to talk about. Tasheem Johnson out of Oregon and Major Burns out of LSU. And the one that stood out was Major Burns. I was a little surprised that he ended up not getting drafted. I don't know if it was a size issue or what, but he was very productive on the field. Kind of reminds me of a little bit like Eddie Jackson from what I had seen. And plus, he's got a really cool name, Major Burns. Like, can you imagine, being able to hear his name being called on game day? Plus, safety is not in the short term a need, but following this year, it's going to be a position that we're going to need to really make sure that we've got got the right guys in there, because we do have a couple guys that are going to be free agents after this upcoming season. So maybe one of those guys will cut the mustard there. My money is on Major Burns. Just look him up and see. He's a darn good player. And I'm pretty sure that Dennis Allen will find a good way to use him, incorporate him in the in packages. Then linebacker, We had one linebacker that was signed, and that was Power Eccles. Yeah, you heard that right. Power Eccles. Also a really sweet name, and he's out of North Carolina. And this guy, again, very productive his senior year. Um, again, I don't have a total deep dive on him yet. I will tell you this. I mean, he did play for Mac Brown, and I know Mac Brown got fired, but Mac Brown has always been known for being a really good coach, coaching up players, and getting the most out of them. And it looks like Eccles could turn into like a guy like a Zachary Bowman that we had years ago, or a Hunter Hillenmeyer. Um, who knows what we might get there. So, good size guy. Looks like it's a kind of guy that Dennis Allen would like in his defense. So, yeah, be interesting to see what's going on there. At edge, we have two guys out on edge. Jeremy Robinson from Kansas actually played with Austin Booker, and we also have Xavier Carlton out of Cal. Between the two, a lot of writers have said that probably Jeremy Robinson is probably the fastest and most athletic out of the two. He's huge. He's pushing like 6'8". So he's a big guy that Dennis Allen, craves to have on that side of the ball. He's also played some defensive tackle as well, so he would be able to move around the line. That would prove to be a really good advantage. And then, Xavier Carlton, the dude, he's very productive as well. He had 9 sacks at Cal this year, and he's very powerful from the looks of it. Writers talk about how he uses the bull rush quite a bit, which is a strength, but it can also be a weakness because he needs to add some flexibility, some bend into his play, and being able to get around guys, and to be creative and to make something out of nothing. So the staff is going to have a lot to work with there. So if you can get him, get that potential untapped, who knows what's going to happen there. So, and then looking at the whiteout position, this is probably the one position where it isn't as high up the list, especially after drafting, Luther Burden. But it never hurts to have a guy that has good return ability, a guy that is going to play on special teams, and one of these guys could carve out a role in that department, or be a really good stash away on the practice squad. I don't know much about these guys. I apologize, but I do want you to know who they are. Jade Walker, from Texas A&M, which I haven't seen as much Texas A&M, picks from the Bears in recent years, but to see him, and then we had Shamar Turner, drafted on Saturday, so that was pretty cool, to see SEC teams being featured, especially Texas A&M. Like I said, I just normally don't see them, the Bears picking guys from there. And then J.P. Richardson from TCU, another kid out of the Texas area there. And then at running back, last but certainly not least, Deion Hankins from Texas State. So we have a bunch of Texas guys here. So one thing I'd like to do is I'm gonna do a little more research here because I'm curious about some of these offensive players. I spent a little more time on the defensive side. So stay tuned later this week for me to do a little bit of a deeper dive on the running back and wideouts that were picked up over the weekend. But the majority of these guys, as you'd seen here, it is defense, 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 defense. Because we spent a lot of time devoted to the offense in the draft. We've got a couple other key signings here, so finally getting a little bit more emphasis on the defensive side of the ball now that we closed out the draft. So let's keep moving on. We talked about all these undrafted free agents. We've talked about the guys that we got over the course of the weekend, which now that we have a little more competition, some players that were already on the roster that have, we're planning to carve out a role and come out of training camp, being on the first, depth chart and everything like that. There's some players that are probably on the hot seat right now. I know the other day Ben Johnson talked about that he wanted to start turning things up a notch with some of the players that he picked. And as you notice, he did the draft worked in a way where you didn't get the obvious picks. Like we knew that they had identified positions that they thought were weaknesses and that the Bears should turn their attention to. But the Bears let the board work for them, and then they got the best players that they could at that pick, and got the most value, and might not necessarily, fill an immediate need, but this gives them an opportunity to build some depth and to really get some consistency going year in and year out by teaching and getting these players um, to a high level of performance. Which, if you saw any of the introductory press conferences and thing, excellence and high levels of performance are huge with Ben Johnson. So, looking at some of the names, there are 5 names that stood out to me that are probably going to start off on the hot seat. One of the most obvious ones to me is Tyler Scott. The kid has just he's been nothing but a bust. Um, a kid out of Cincinnati. We tried him at return. He's dropped kick returns. He was supposed to be a burner kind of guy, being able to stretch the field. And whenever Justin Fields or even Caleb Williams last season, you know, which I don't even think last season Tyler Scott even really saw the field much. He just was completely ineffective. And that's a bummer because, he looked like he had promise um, coming into his rookie year. So I think with what we've done at the wide receiver position in the draft and in free agency, I feel like Tyler Scott's on the outside looking in. Another one is I definitely believe this guy is a cut candidate. Miles Boykin. He was one of our whiteout signings this free agency cycle. Used to be with Green Bay. I believe he was also with Baltimore as well. Um, it was a good gadgety kind of whiteout. But looking at who we have right now, what I think we're going to be taking in that first real depth chart, um, he's way down the line. I do not think he's going to stick. So I'm going to say Miles Boykin is out. Um, I mentioned him earlier, Cairo Santos. Cairo Santos is starting to show decline. He's been a hell of a kicker since we've had him here, but the fact is that it looks like he is starting to show a little bit more decline, and on top of that, pretty costly too. If we can designate a post June 1st cut, there's money to be saved, put right back into the cap, and maybe make some mid-season or in-season signings if need be, or get another guy before the year begins. Hard to say. But I think Cairo is gonna have to come in and really play his butt off if he wants to remain on the roster. Because with it being Ben Johnson's team now, and I mean he may be ready to make a change. Richard Hightower might have something to say about that though, because Hightower has a lot of respect for Cairo, and vice versa. So I don't know. It's possible, but I could also see him staying on the roster. Dominique Robinson, Dom Rob. We have this influx now of new linemen that we've drafted and signed so far, and Dom Rob, with each signing and each pick in the draft that was on the defensive line, which would have been Shamar Turner, I feel like that just drove Dom Rob even further down. And Dom Rob, was converting to the defensive side of the ball, and he's shown flashes of good productivity, but there are times where when he plays, he is completely non-existent. I truly think that this experiment might be over. He's going to have a lot to prove in training camp, and if he cannot hit the ground running and make a good impression with Dennis Allen and company, I think he's gonna be looking for work elsewhere. Another guy, my fifth one, and based on what I saw with the way the draft panned out on Saturday, I think Ryan Bates is on the line right now. For those that don't remember Ryan Bates very well, Ryan Bates used to play for Buffalo. We had traded for him last season, and then the injuries started mounting up, and Ryan Bates didn't see a lot of action. He saw action, but not as much as we would have hoped. And I think his health is a liability. Um, he's built really well for a lineman, but I mean, if you're not on the field and you're not making a difference out there, it's really hard to justify, especially when you have a cap number that's larger than the rookies that you're bringing in. I mean, we just got Ozzy Trapillo, who's most likely going to be starting off on the right side of the line, but you also have Luke Newman, who has played center and guard, and rumor has it initially he's going to be transitioning to center full time. Um, but he also, he can play guard in a pinch, which that's the same role that Ryan Bates served in last year. And if we can get a guy that stays healthy and he's hungry and ready to go to work, I can see the Bears moving on from Ryan Bates. So, and I'm sure that this is going to change as the off season continues and we start pushing towards training camp, and these guys get more of an opportunity to work with both the coaching staff and the other players, and just to see what they're able to pull together. So we'll see. Next, I mean, we got to talk about it. The last couple of days have been pretty hot in terms of talking about a running back. As we know, we didn't get our running back until the 7th round. We ended up getting the guy out of Rutgers. I believe his name, and I'm still getting used to it because it doesn't roll off the tip of my tongue, but Kyle Monangai. We got him, and a lot of people are saying that he's a steal. He's an absolute steal. He's a little bit smaller guy, but he's got some thump to him. But it sounds like the Bears are not done, that they want to continue to add to that running back room like we talked about yesterday. The rumor was that Nick Chubb was going to sign with an NFC team, NFC North team, and that team would be the Bears, just the way that the dots are connecting, but nothing is official yet. And I can also see the Bears having second thoughts on that, because you look at a guy like Nick Chubb, who was uber productive in Cleveland, but in recent years has destroyed his knee. He's had health issues. The durability and wear is starting to really, pardon the pun, but wear on him. And I think that teams are very concerned about that as they move forward with trying to improve or upgrade their running back room. And I think that from the sounds of it, it sounds like Chubb is progressing well in his recovery. But there's some people that have talked about, there being long-term permanent damage, where he can't be the guy that he once was. He could still be a contributor, but he's not going to be the type of feature back that you're expecting. So it made me wonder, like, well, maybe we shouldn't look at a guy like Nick Chubb, because with the injury, I'd hate to see a wasted pick or a wasted signing right there. We've had those in our time, and I don't want to see us have a poor return on investment. So methinks J.K. Dobbins would be a great pick for the Bears. As you know, he's come off of a season with the Chargers, had near 1,000 yards rushing, had a handful of touchdowns, and he thrived under that offense there in LA. And even though they put I believe they put like a unrestricted tag on him, where the Chargers, if somebody does want to sign him, they have the opportunity to match, and they could also receive a compensatory pick if another team ends up signing him. Which to me, that just seems like a low risk, high reward, because he's younger. I mean, he's 26. Nick Chubb is pushing towards 30. I believe he's going to be 29 or is 29. But Dobbins is 26 right now. He's got fresher legs, and he's a guy that he doesn't have to worry about catching the ball out of the backfield. That's going to be DeAndre Swift right there. So lean on DeAndre with the receiving part of the role, and then that ground and pound, give it to Dobbins, man. I think he would be perfect. Um, or you could look at a guy like Gus Edwards, just a little bit older. Um, he didn't do as well in LA last season. He did fill in for when Dobbins was out for a couple of games, but I mean, that's another possibility. Or you stick with who you know, and you lean on Roshan Johnson. And maybe Ben Johnson looks at him and says, "This is your time to step up. I need thunder and lightning in here, and I need you to be that thunder. I need you to thump, and I need you to grind out." And maybe it's just because of his first 2 years in the NFL, it's just poor coaching, um, poor mentorship, and just getting the right guys in there. Who knows? Eric Bieniemy might be able to do wonders with the dude. Um, be curious to see. But as of right now, if we're going to go out and we're going to sign a running back, I would hope that it would be J.K. Dobbins. I think you either go J.K. Dobbins, or you do something like a 1-year deal for Nick Chubb, and just not maybe come up with a rotation for him and try to just maintain him, keep him as fresh as possible. um, I think you could look at doing something like that, or you really focus on developing Roshan Johnson. And we didn't even talk about Ian Wheeler yet. I mean, Ian Wheeler could even carve out a role um, in this running back room as well. So I'm going to keep a close eye these next few days, because I think something's going to give there. Either they're going to go all in and get one of those guys, or they're going to stand pat and maybe look at an in-season trade or something, or just watch the waiver wire and see if there's a guy that they think would fit that mold. That's a possibility as well. So hard to say. We still have plenty of time until training camp. So that about wraps it up today. Before we do that, though, I always like to do a little bit of Bears mentioning. I like to do some fun facts, some trivia with you guys, a little history lesson. I've seen a lot of Bears football. I've seen a lot of different regimes come in and out, in and out, and in and out. I've seen a little bit of everything. So I always like to try to tie some of that in, especially if you're a younger Bears fan and you're still you're still learning about the history and the lore of the team. Hopefully, I can help you with that a little bit, or provide you with some cool knowledge here. But today, Smokin' Jay Cutler, former quarterback of the Bears. Today is his birthday, so happy birthday, Cuddy. He was born 6 days after your boy right here. So happy birthday to you. Smoke him if you got him there, Jay. Neat thing about Jay, um, we ended up trading for him in 2009. And that was at the time, I remember being up, I was flying from Atlanta back to Detroit. And I was coming home for a spring break or something. And I remember once we landed, I checked my phone and it said that we traded for Jay Cutler. Going back and looking at the trade, I could not believe how much we gave up for Cutler. Kyle Orton was the quarterback we sent back to Denver along with 2 first-round picks in 2009, 2010, and we also sent it over a third-round pick. I look at that now and I'm like, "Oh my god, we gave up everything but the kitchen sink." And I tell you right now, we could have kept Kyle Orton, and I feel like he would have produced the same damn results as what Jay Cutler did. Cutler was a breath of fresh air starting out. I mean, he did thrive with Mike Martz's offense early on. I mean, obviously he had that 2010 NFC Championship game, but the thing that really torqued me was when he decided to pull himself out at halftime. We were up and we were playing Green Bay in the championship game. We would have won that. We would have gone to the Super Bowl. But he pulled himself out, and they ended up putting in none other than Caleb Haney. And Caleb Haney had to shoulder the brunt. And he did admirable, but we came up short. And Green Bay went to the Super Bowl. That one still hurts to this day. Well, something really cool that did also come out of that draft was a fifth round pick that we ended up getting back in return for Cuddy. And that guy turned out to be Johnny Knox. Johnny Knox was this really speedy wide receiver. Smaller dude, but fast. Also a good returner. Um, Dude was such a spark plug. Loved watching him on Sundays. Go back and watch some Johnny Knox highlights. Absolutely fantastic, but his career got cut short. Injuries just caught up to him, and he had called a career early. But the dude was phenomenal. You loved rooting for him, and that was a really nice pick to get back, especially with it being a fifth rounder later in the draft, and to find a guy that ended up being, carving out a role on the team week in and week out. It's pretty amazing. So, Bears fans, I know that's a lot to digest there. We've almost been going for a whole half hour. Holy crap. I love talking about the Bears. And I just keep going and going. So hopefully you've enjoyed what you're listening to. Please hit that like, subscribe, feel free, leave us a post, put any questions in there, comments, tell me I need to shave my head, I'm not looking super shiny up on my old dome here, whatever. Just, yeah, feel free to reach out and just keep tuning in. And like I said, probably tomorrow or Thursday, we're going to dive into some more of those undrafted free agents. So I'm Brandon. This is Bears Latest. I'm out of here, so bear down.